Hands-on, feet on, powered on your mark. On is the start of everything. On is the key to learning. Being on an environment, not just in it. Being on the world, not just of it.
Tarkett understands how important On is.
We work on it every day. On the ground with you, designing flooring experiences to grow on, dream on, and get on with it.
Hi everyone, we are here to present School Buildings Connecting with Students through Interactive Learning Opportunities. We are excited to be here, and I'm excited to introduce the speakers for today's session. I'm Shivani Langer. I am a Senior Project Architect and Regional Sustainability Leader with Stantec Architecture in Austin, Texas. With me today, we have Craig Wilson. He is the Director of Digital Learning with Temple ISD in Temple, Texas. And the interesting and important part is that he was the ex-principal of Thornton Elementary, which is one of the schools that we're going to discuss today. And then we have Zach Schneider. He is with CMTA, and he was actually the lead engineer on the same project that we're going to talk about. CMTA has many locations, and one of their offices is in Houston, and a lot of our Texas projects are actually done by CMTA. So this is the team that is going to talk about interactive learning opportunities and how we can connect students with those in a building. So we thought it'll be great for us to start with the story of a project. I think by looking at examples, by giving you examples of how it can be done on a project, we wanted to give you an idea of the various ways and how beneficial interactive learning opportunities can be. And that's one of the projects that we have done together as a team is the Thornton Elementary School in Temple ISD in Texas. And the great part about the school is when we had actually put the presentation together, we didn't know this, but recently this project was awarded the TASA-TASB Stars of Distinction. And the 2 stars of the distinction that it actually got awarded were value and sustainability. And that is truly what we are going to talk about today. I'm going to hand it over to Craig now to talk more about the story of the project.
Thanks, Shivani. So one of the things that we had to decide early on is we had a 1960 very traditional building that was old, and it was time to have it refreshed. So we had to make a decision: were we going to remodel, or were we going to rebuild? And we had a survey crew come through with us, and we looked throughout the building, and we determined that actually it was more important at this point if we went ahead and did a brand new building instead of a remodel of the existing structure. One of the problems that we had with this building is it was a neighborhood building. It was built for the neighborhood, had a very small cafeteria, had a very small library space. And so as we continued to add wings and expand and add additional classrooms to it, the common spaces were not able to keep up. The other thing too that we were concerned about is some of the infrastructure of the building, whether it was the electrical work, particularly the septic system, the drainage system. We weren't sure in what good shape it was underneath the ground. And so it was roughly equivalent over time to either have remodeled the building or create a new building. And we felt that it was very important for us to go ahead and create a whole new building. Just because you kept increasing the occupancy of these very small classrooms, our common spaces weren't getting any larger. So with that regard, we went ahead and had very involved and engaged community meetings. This is not the first building that we have recently decided to do a remodel or just create a new building. And so fortunately, we had this process down already. So we brought in stakeholders at every point along the way, from inception all the way through the completion of the project. And one of the things about our school, since it is from 1960 and we are a small community, probably a good third of our community had attended Thornton at one time or another. And so they had very strong emotional ties to that building. So we wanted to make sure that as we moved forward, they didn't feel like they were being abandoned with their building being demolished and all their history and their emotional attachment gone with it. So through these community meetings, we opted to decide what we needed to do moving forward. The two things that are very important to our community is, one, we are a railroad community. We were built from the start of the railroads back in the 1880s. And the other thing that we're known for is for our Baylor Scott and White Hospital. So we'd already had two buildings prior to Thornton, and one took on the homage to the railroad. The other one took on the homage to the medical center. And so when it came our turn, the superintendent asked me, well, what's very important to you? And I said, sustainability. We really need to be talking about how to make sure that our facility is moving into the next century. We know that these buildings are going to last for 40, 50, 60 years, and make sure that this becomes a sustainable building and something we can be proud of for many generations to come. So here is our site that is our entire campus. So it's about 13 acres. This was willed to us by one of our community members. It was part of her ranch. And you can look in, and your screen, look in the lower left-hand corner where it says existing gym. Right to the left of that was our existing building. It was about 56,000 square foot by the time we were all said and done, but originally it was less than 39,000 square feet. What's important about this building, if you can see in that inset in the gray picture, there's an oval track in there. That oval track was a shared community resource. So not only were our kids using it during their physical education, but our community members walked that track day and night. They were always involved there. There was always Pee-wee football games and community soccer games that were happening in that oval track. And so part of what came out of our community discussion was we want this to maintain and still be part of our community opportunities for recreation. So what we did was, even though we had to take out that oval track to replace it with a parking lot, we did extend and we have 8-foot paved sidewalks all around the perimeter of the building. We have different levels of walking. We do encourage our community to be here involved with us even during the daytime. We kept the existing gym because that was important. We used that for our basketball in town. We also use it for tumbling, dance, other events that happen on by our community in the evening. So we did keep that as a standalone unit. But you can see from the rendering here, we continue to add in additional space for our community. One of the cool things about this too, I'm sorry, Shivani, one of the cool things about this was the original oval track you could see was out in the broad open space. And you know, here in Central Texas, when it reaches those triple digits, that's just uncomfortable. So what we did was we weaved the new trails through all of our existing live oaks and pin oaks to provide shading and to provide a little bit more interest. So this is the front of our building, and we opted to do two different things while we were in the design phase with the community and with Stantec. What we opted to do was the inside of the building, we were going to keep a very organic feel, and Shivani's going to talk a little bit more about that later. And the outside of it, we decided to go ahead and keep rectilinear. But what we did do is these colors that you see out here, they match another community landmark, which is our McLean's Children's Hospital. It's one of two trauma centers in the whole state of Texas. And that is about 3/4 of a mile down from our school facility. And they are one of our community partners. The kids walk to the hospital, the Children's Hospital. They do tours with them. They come over and they visit us as one of our community partners. And we felt that if we imaged some of the outside of the building to imitate also the Children's Museum, the Children's Hospital, that our community could see that we still had that connection. So here's the inside. This is our front entrance area. And what you'll notice, again, this is from the community to make sure that we celebrate our history. If you look behind our receptionist, that's beautiful Miss Sherry, love her to death. We have a brick wall with the letter Sarah T. Thornton. For those of you who remember a few slides back, this is the actual brick and the actual letters that were on the exterior of the old building. So we brought them into the interior of this building. We had masons rebuild brick by brick, put it all back together and cleaned up the letters, and we put them all in here. And we hear a lot of that from former Thunderbirds when they come into our building. They're like, oh, I remember that. That used to be on the outside of the building. So it helps with the community that we continue to tie into our history and our past and tie it to our future with our new students.
Great. Thank you, Craig. Thanks for that wonderful connection for the community to the school. And I'll go into now a little bit is the building design. So Craig talked about how the building and the site design actually came about from how the community goals and the campus goals. And then as we move into the building, how did we actually as a team come about trying to figure out how can we incorporate the campus goals of having a compact plan so that you can have as much community space on the site as possible. How can we connect the indoors to the outdoors? How can we have sustainability goals spread throughout the building? And as you can see in this plan is actually north down. This is just the way the existing schools was, and we kept the orientation the same in the plan sheets as such. But so the south is up. But if you look at it, the bottom of the plan shows that that's actually the grade level classrooms that you can see on the south side of the plan, and the commons is in the center of that space. We will talk a little bit more about the commons area. But throughout the plan, we were looking at different opportunities of different sizes of learning that the students and the teachers can use for different kind of learning plans. We also, the admin is on the north of this plan. The common areas were all to the north of the plan. Those were all the cafeteria, the gym, but you can see the connections of all of these spaces to the outdoor. So you can see that there was constant connection from the classrooms, from the gym, and even the admin area, but also those corridors that are leading from the admin to the classroom spaces have glazing, and we'll be seeing some of those exterior renderings as well. The envelope was looked at in great detail as to how insulated we can make the envelope to also meet our sustainability goals. The daylighting that comes into the space will also be very visible in some of the next slides. This is the second floor plan, and you can see that the compactness of the plan, the grade levels are exactly the same from first to second floor. The second floor had third, fourth, and fifth grade, while the first floor had kinder, first, and second. And again, the commons keeps them all together, but the central, that pathway leading on to some of the common classrooms, again, could look down into the outdoor spaces and have that connection as well. So Craig already talked about how the exterior came about in relation to what the surroundings, the community. It had more of an image of a community center because we wanted this building to be truly an image of the community surrounding it. On the right side, you can see the pictures of the courtyard, which we are going to talk about in detail. But this image shows how the second floor, the first floor, all the classrooms as well as the admin face that courtyard. So there is a constant connection and constant learning that is happening, not just in the classrooms, but also what's happening outside. And the connection to the nature was very critical. One other thing we wanted to mention here is that it was critical for us to work with durable and local finishes. So a lot of the masonry that you see here is all locally sourced. So we wanted to keep that local theme going as well. The sections here do show a lot of the connections again. So the top section A, it actually shows the gym opening into that central area, that outdoor play that you see written there, and the academics open into that as well. That's actually the playscapes. It's actually also an amphitheater. That is an outdoor amphitheater. We're going to talk about how the gym and the dining connect as well. So there is a very open layout to the entire school building. On the section B, you can see that actually shows the section of the commons. So you can see the clear story windows bringing light all the way. So very critical for us to bring in light, not just to the classrooms, but to the common spaces as well. And this is the shot of the common space. So that's it was very critical for the school district to constantly have supervision, constant with all the safety concerns that we have. We wanted to make sure that we had visibility all the way across, from one wing of the classrooms to the other and into the common space. So the glass railing was critical. I'm going to talk about the graphics a little bit more, but if you can see that graphic right next to the stairs was on a PLAN panel, but it depicted local landscape. And it's actually, all these pictures are by the facilities director of Temple ISD. So it was incredible that we were able to use some of the local pictures by a school administration personnel to showcase in the school building. We also have LED fixtures all the way across the entire school, just another way we could maintain the sustainability. Durable, cleanable surfaces. We also wanted to highlight circadian rhythm, and it was interesting that Craig pointed that out in one of our conversations, that the daylight just makes, he can actually see the difference in the kids, how attentive they were, or how excited they were because they could actually see the sun, the daylight moving across the sky because of the opportunities that we had with the connections to the outside. Circadian rhythm is a way that governs our physiological clock according to the day cycle, and daylighting makes that happen quite easily. So that's another way for us to keep the children connected with the circadian rhythm, is by having access to daylight. So that was one of the things we really wanted to do. We wanted to emphasize that we incorporated biophilic design. Biophilic design is the connection to the nature. It can be done by, how we connected to the outdoors, but even on the inside, we wanted to make sure that the kids are constantly connected to nature. With all that's happening around us, the school safety drills, the lockdowns, and not to mention COVID-19, the kids are stressed and anxious all the time, and nature is known to be a de-stressor. That's the biggest reason why biophilic design is very critical, especially for younger age children. And we made sure that we could incorporate that in the design when it came to finishes, when we came to ceiling. So this is a picture of a library. And again, the picture on the wall is a local, from a local landscape. And we were able to incorporate the river flowing in the carpet tiles. And the river flows from the sun, which is behind us in this picture, sun to the river. And the kids just love it. The teachers just love sitting below that tree and having small group classes like you can see happening in that image. We were able to also incorporate biophilic design thanks to the school district. They actually have furniture which is organic as well, which incorporates the same principles of biophilic design, making sure the kids are always connected to nature, which helps them. It helps with their mental health and well-being. Another research indicates that mazes are a big stressors. So if a child is not able to find their way across a school or across a building, it actually stresses them. That is why wayfinding is very important. The Well Building Standard is constantly talking about wayfinding too. Wayfinding can be done in many different ways, but in this school, we thought that let's also make it a learning opportunity. Let's teach the children about their local landscape by having wayfinding, not just by colors, but by flora and fauna that they see around. their city. So again, these pictures were incorporated, and every grade level had a different flower that they could relate to, and they could always find their way through the school, which again helps them, it helps with their mental health as well. I will hand over to Craig to talk a little bit more about incorporation of different kinds of spaces in learning.
Yeah, thanks, Shivani. One of the things that I'd like to echo that Shivani was talking about too is the flora, the fauna, all of the pictures that you saw from on all the PLAM panels. It was important for us that that comes from our local community. So again, the kids can connect with the community. So those are all local things that they would see out outside of the school building. So one of the important things as we were putting this building together is, when we think about education we're looking into the future, we know that education contained within 4 walls of a very small classroom is just not the norm. That is not where we're moving into the 21st century. You may hear a lot about removing the 4th wall, going out of the 4 walls of the classroom. So we made sure that this building was incorporating that, and then it could accommodate that as well. This is 2 different examples here. One is for a large meeting area, and one is for a more intimate meeting experience. So you see in the larger picture there, this is when we pulled back the fold-away wall between our gym and our cafeteria. So the dining and the physical space can become one large open space. This is important when we have large community gatherings. There are times when we would have, say, for example, a science fair that would be going on in here, or some kind of demonstration, a community event is going on. So we can open up that wall and make one large common space. In our city, we don't have very many large common spaces. We don't even have really hotel conference rooms that are this big. So this has become important for our community to have one large space. But then you come down into the inset picture there, and that was a use of a small space. So this is the common areas that Shivani was talking about back in the classroom wings. And what we opted to do was take some of the corners of those and make them an intimate learning experience. So in this case here, you see we have one of our teachers here, and we decided to put whiteboards up, and we brought in some curved furniture that, again, is matching that organic piece to it, so that this can become an intimate learning space. Upstairs with our upper grades, we also have cafe tables and chairs that are on a high stool level with lots of Wi-Fi connectivity, USB connectivity, so that the kids feel like they're in a Starbucks or somewhere in a cafe style. So again, these are creating those small intimate locations that can be used for a small group with the teacher or students themselves. You'll also notice that there is a large pane of glass against the door just to the right in that inset picture, so that, again, we have that visibility, so the teachers felt more comfortable allowing the kids to be out in those common spaces. They can still keep an eye on them, but it let the kids come out and they have more of an ownership into their learning. So I think in the next picture here, here's another couple views of how we use the facility to gain some more learning areas. So in the inside picture on the left-hand side, these could have been just plain corridors that went to a different part of the wing upstairs. And what we asked was for seating areas. So put some benches against the glazing, against those windows there. These become one of the most popular areas for our kids. They love to sit on those benches. A teacher or a paraprofessional would love to take 2 or 3 kids and just go sit down there and do a little bit of intimate learning. I'll find kids in those nooks all the time, like you see that kid in the blue sweatshirt over there. I'll find kids curled up reading a book all the time in these corners. And those were just unexpected incidences that happened as we went along. Another thing we had to do, if you look at the playground picture on the right-hand side, was our building is built up on a little bit of a crown of a hill, a very, very slight hill. And due to that reasoning, we had to make our building, one part of it elevated compared to the other part. We took advantage of that. So where you can see, if you look underneath that pergola, you see some steps there. So what we did was we took that 90-degree area and we provided steps there, not only for the kids. We could have put a little knoll, a little earthen knoll there, but we decided to make that more of a structured area. That becomes a great place for kids, again, to read. They love to sit in there and read. It also becomes almost an amphitheater. The teachers like to go, when they want to go outside, they go underneath that. All the kids sit around and listen, or kids will perform out there on the grass while the other kids are sitting on the cement steps. So it becomes a very naturalistic area for kids to play in. Also, with all this covering that's going around on the exterior of the building surrounding these corridors, it provides a good space that could still get outside and learn or get some recreation, even when the weather is less than fair. So these have become some of the favorite places for kids to learn outside of the four walls of the classroom.
Thank you, Craig. As he mentioned earlier about that sustainability was one of the driving goals of this project. When we decided to talk about HVAC systems, we sat down with Craig and his staff, and the decision was made to go with a geothermal HVAC system. That system actually uses the earth as a heat sink to where it rejects the heat to the earth or pulls the heat to the earth depending on the season as needed. And then all of this system is basically underground where there's nothing exposed to view. And so on this project, we actually ended up with 216 wells that were 300 feet deep. So obviously it's a good steward of the environment because it saves energy, but we also wanted to be good stewards to the neighbors because this system doesn't have any of the large cooling towers or chillers that you would typically see outside. And we also want to be good stewards to the maintenance staff. This system is very low maintenance, very little effort is needed by anybody to keep the system running. And pairing all this together, along with the LED lighting, along with a good envelope design, thanks to Shivani, we were able to get the energy use of this building down to 21.9 kilobtu per square foot. So basically that takes all of the energy the building is using and equates it into the kilobtu matrix. So everybody knows the mile per gallon of your car. This is kind of the mile per gallon of this building. And at that low number, it makes it one of the most energy efficient schools in the state of Texas. And in designing the HVAC systems as well, indoor air quality is a big concern of ours. So what you have here is, it's called the COG test, but it's basically the impact of CO2 on children inside a classroom or people inside an office building, either one. And what they've able to find out is as your CO2 levels rise in the space, the cognitive performance declines in the space. But you can see it's not a linear function to where 0 parts per million of CO2 is not that big of a difference from 500, et cetera. And so you also have to weigh in the cost of what it takes to get all the CO2 out of the building. Well, you do that by introducing more outdoor air into the facility. And so the kind of the happy place on this is between 800 and 900 parts per million. That's where it's able to maintain enough outdoor air to keep the cognitive performance high, but also make it affordable to where the first cost of these systems and the energy cost of these systems are maintainable. And in keeping with the outdoor air, keeping the building flushed, obviously this building was designed pre-COVID, but as I mentioned, it was designed to be a healthy environment. Well, with today's pandemic and the COVID response, a lot of the elements that we had incorporated into this building 2 years ago greatly help with today's pandemic that we're having. So some things that were already designed in Thornton that are recommendations for today is the dedicated outdoor air system. With that system, we can actually program the building to be flushed out every day or every morning to where, all of the air that's in it for today, we flush it out with brand new fresh air. Now, all that fresh air is also filtered greatly. Typically, we would do a MERV 8, maybe even a MERV 10 filter. With today's standards, we could upgrade those to a MERV 13 filter for very little cost. And another system we used in here was a bipolar ionization system. At the time, we were using this system just to help make the indoor air quality better. It basically makes the particles in the air a little bit larger to where they either A, fall out of the airstream or B, get caught in that filter. It improved indoor air quality, but it's today a thing that people are recommending to help with COVID spread. And so there's lots of research being done on all of these systems and how they are helping COVID. So I'll hand it back over to Craig real quick to talk about some of the current statistics in Thornton Elementary during COVID.
So obviously when Zach and CMTA were putting this building together, they didn't predict, oh, there's going to be a pandemic that's going to happen in 3 years. If you do, if you know that, Zach, I also want to know what your football bets are and your horse bets. But what is interesting is the side effects of the building that are pretty awesome is Thornton right now is the second largest campus in our district. And to this point, knock on wood, I hope I'm not jinxing it, we have had no cases of COVID. It's one of the few schools where we've had no cases of COVID. And we also, the teachers have reported that they feel healthier. especially in respiratory. Our kids that have asthmatic conditions, they're in much better shape. There isn't a lot of pollution, air pollution in the building right now, so they are healthier. We have one of the highest, if not the highest, both staff attendance and student attendance rates in the district. So I'd like to give CMTA all the credit for that. I don't know if I can, but I'll give it to you.
Well, I appreciate it. Yes, I cannot take all the credit for that. We all say that obviously the HVAC system is not the solution to COVID, but it is definitely one of the things that CDC and ASHRAE recommend. And another great point, not this school specifically, but we've done a similar project with another district where we replaced an older building with a brand new building. And on that one, we actually had a lot of data from the existing building, and that facility was had the highest absentee rate of any school in the district. Well, once the new building was built, same children that were in the building moved into the new building, it completely flipped. It became the lowest absentee rate in the district. There again, so whether some of that was to indoor air quality and sickness or just the fact that kids really loved the building and wanted to attend school.
That's some great statistics. That was wonderful. And I think we have talked to you a lot about so far about how the building design actually had a lot to do with how the teaching happened in Thornton Elementary, whether it could be space planning, it could be how the materials were incorporated, how biophilic design was used, the wayfinding, everything helped with how the kids learned. And including, the small group learning, how the flexible environments that Craig talked about, the adaptable environments that Craig talked about. So we wanted to start at the building, and even the HVAC system, you will see how that became a learning opportunity. So we wanted to give you an idea of the building overall being a learning opportunity. And then we wanted to actually also give you examples of learning tools that were incorporated along with the building to be very interactive and making it extremely interesting for the kids to learn. What we wanted to talk about also is how those learning tools were incorporated with the curriculum. And Craig is obviously the best person to talk about that. So I'm going to hand over to Craig.
Thanks. Well, this is our pride and joy. This idea of learning beyond our classroom. And when we look here at, this is a rendering of our eco garden. So there are a few things here that we were very intentional about including in our learning opportunities. You see there, we talk about solar shading, the wind turbine and the solar panel, which I'll leave to Zach to talk about, and the rain collection, which we'll talk about here in the next slide as well. So our eco garden, yeah, there it is. Our eco garden, this has got to be our crown jewel. This one, and then combined with our library, these are our crown jewels of the building. This is such a beautiful space for our kids to go and to experience. One of the things you'll notice there, if you look toward the back center, is that's yet another staging space for kids to be able to sit down and to learn and to have some opportunities in an amphitheater type environment. I'm telling you, these spaces are constantly being used. It's fantastic. What we also incorporated, though, is an idea here that the kids can produce their own food. So we have a farm to table. It's more of a demonstration, but they do produce food here. So we brought in these metal troughs that you can see in the picture, and we put in perforated PVC pipes and buried them and put in the soil, and we've got a fantastic science teacher who helps to incorporate this. So we have vegetables out there, we have herbs out there, and we make sure that what we're growing here is good and hearty for our climate, for our zone. We teach the kids that English peas don't grow very well in Texas, but pumpkins and stuff do. And then we have a longer growing season than in some areas of the United States. We also talk about, if you see there's some kids there around a composting barrel. So we take the weeds and we take the plantings as they're done, and we put them into the composting, and then we add it back in to enrich the soil. So when the kids do have, one of the favorite things that we like to do is this idea of a farmer's market, and the kids get very proud of this. So when it comes time, when we've got the cucumbers and the tomatoes and the chili peppers and the herbs and all that ready to do, we have a little farmer's market. It's mostly their parents who come out, but there are some community members too. And they literally buy the fruits and vegetables and herbs from them. And then after that, the kids use that money and they incorporate it or use it to invest back into the eco garden. So they use it to buy saplings, they use it to buy more composting, or to do something with the soil. So it's very important that they see that. We also have a great kitchen manager who tells the kids, hey, let me have some of your vegetables, and we're going to put them actually into our, into our cafeteria and into our food. Well, obviously with 750 to 800 kids, there's not enough vegetables growing there to do that, but the kids do get that sense of pride. They do get to see part of that. And Zach is going to talk about something called Sphere here in a little while, where the kids can connect to it back in their classroom as well. So there's other lessons that happen here. They get to learn about the life cycle of plants. They get to learn about the differences between fruits and vegetables. As the kids get older, they get to learn more advanced techniques. What you also see there, and I'm going to talk about this in the next slide too, is the native plantings. They are hardy. They are local to our zone. They're drought tolerant. So we get to have those conversations with the kids as well. So here's another look at our eco garden here. What you can see in the back is the cistern. So we have a catchment system back there. This is pulling water up off of the roof of the front part of the building, the office and administrative parts. And no worries, remember this is a sustainable building, so the roof is made of a pliable white vinyl. There's no aggregate, there's no tar, there's no asphalt up on the roof, and so the water that comes off there is pretty clean. It comes into this catchment system here, and it's right behind that kid who's jumping off of this brick. Off the stone structure here. Right behind him there is a gauge, and it's just a float gauge, gravity-fed float gauge, and the kids can see how much water is in that cistern or how much water is not in that cistern. And what's good about the area that we live in is we feast or famine around here in Central Texas. We either get gully washers and we get all flooded out, or we have no water at all. Well, this is a way to conserve and retain that water to be used. And we actually do. There's spigots on the bottom of it, and we attach hoses to it and soaker systems. And we take the water out of this catchment and we put it into those troughs that you saw, so the kids can see how we use the rainwater collected to go ahead and feed or to water our vegetables as well. You'll also see that these kids are surrounding the circle. That circle, it serves two purposes. It is both a compass rose and it is a, what am I trying to say?
Human sundial.
Thank you. It's a sundial. That's what I was trying to say. I'm not going to steal too much of Shivani's thunder. She's going to be talking about the sundial here in a few minutes. But what I do want you to notice is that compass rose does face due north and south. So we can use that for cardinal directions as well. The kids can stand out there and they know where east, west, north, and south are. So it's a wonderful learning experience for the kids. They love to be out here. And it's funny to see this picture because this was when we first opened the building, and now these plants have all become way more mature and they're exciting for the kids. So this is another unintentional learning area that we had. We had to build retention ponds around our building. That's code anyways. Like you heard me say earlier, we're a little bit on the top of a hill and everything rolls downhill from there. Well, the way our grounds used to be, those 13 acres, is it was all covered in grass, and it was all rich limestone that let the water filter and come down through it very easily, even when we had those horrible rains. Well, when you put that much more structure out there, whether it's a pavement, a building, or something like that, all that water runoff, we were afraid, our neighbors that are just downhill from us, we've got a memory care center, we've got a big lots. We didn't want to flood out our neighbors. That's just not ethical. So we had to build all these retention ponds around our campus. The nice thing about those retention ponds is normally they're dry, and so the kids get to get out there and play ball and soccer and stuff like that. But then when we do get the gully washers, they fill up with water, and magical things happen here in Central Texas when those things fill with water. All of a sudden, you start getting tadpoles, you start getting minnows, you start getting all kinds of other. I don't know where these crawfish are, but all of a sudden crawfish start popping up. And they get to watch the water slowly drain off or slowly soak into the soil, so they get to see that that's an important function of making sure that we're being sustainable and ethical to our neighbors and making sure that we're taking care of our environment. Then typically when these waters drain off or eventually soak in, we get this flush of green and these wildflowers to start growing up. So they get to see that magic happen as well. So not only is it water conservation and flood control, but they also get to see the magic of nature happen in these retention ponds.
Great. Thank you, Craig. And as Craig mentioned about the human sundial, this picture is actually from a different school, and we've done this human sundial in a couple of other elementary schools. This one, especially, we just swapped the picture from Thornton to this one, is just to show how it can be done as a community project. This particular sundial actually has, if you see, the girl is standing on the months of the year, and there are two circles right in front of her. So the shadow is giving the time. One, the outer circle is the daylight saving time, and the inner circle is the other time. So they get to learn, all the way from solar path, shadows, climate, just daylight saving times, all kinds of things. And as an architecture student, I was learning sundials. We were building sundials. So this being out there in the landscape of the school, that is public land, this school actually has had kids coming from the middle and the high school to also be able to learn from the sundial. So all of these different components that we are talking about that are available for the community are not just learning for the students, they're also learning for community. We actually have a plaque in this one that actually, people can come and read what this is all about and stand there and learn about the sundial if it's not someone who is already aware of what it does. And just talking about the community project, this project was a 5th grade gift back to the school. So every 5th grade student was able to come and have some part of them in this particular project. They came and laid out those tiles. As you can see, they're doing it. Parents were involved. Parents came and laid the concrete. In that picture, you can see principal, the art teacher, the counselors, everyone got involved to build a tool that can be used forever by many kids as they move through the school years. I'll hand over to Zach to talk a little bit more about some of the learning tools.
Yeah, thank you. So staying with the theme of sustainability, you've seen images of the eco garden, but we wanted to incorporate some renewable energy aspects into the building. One, yes, to offset some electricity, but two, again, just to get students excited and to give them more learning tools. And you typically see solar panels, on the roofs of buildings, but we wanted to get it down, kind of up close and personal. And so the eco garden was the best place for that. And then I'll talk a little bit later about how the students can monitor the energy use. And then the same with the windmill. We want to put a windmill out there, but also make it visible to the public, something people can see to know that this building is sustainable and this elementary school is doing things to help the environment and to help students learn. And then to tie that in also, there's signage throughout the building, but this is a good example. As soon as you enter the front, this is kind of the backside of the picture Craig touched on earlier at the admin. As soon as you walk in the door, again, first thing you see when you walk in is ways that Thornton Elementary is trying to save the planet. And it gets, again, not only the students excited, but also parents and, community members. As they come in, they can see the panels outside, the wind turbine outside, and they can see this information inside. Again, just all ways that we can, tie it in to make it more sustainable. And so one of the things working with Craig early on, when we were trying to come up with ways to make the building a teaching tool, we have a system, it's a curriculum integration system, and we've actually coined the phrase SPHERE is what we call it. But what it does, it's a tool that helps the teachers use the building as a learning tool, but actually hopefully makes it easier for them. The last thing we want to do is give the teacher, something else on their plate that they have to deal with. So we actually sat down with Craig. Craig was able to bring in a lot of his teachers, a lot of his staff, and we went through this system of first started from, from our aspect of what we think this system is and how it can be incorporated to school. But then once Craig and his teachers got in, it just opened up so many doors of different things that this system could be capable of. And so I'll give a live demonstration here in just a minute, but it gives you real-time energy performance. Students can see how much electricity the solar panels are producing, how much the windmill's producing. They can even program it to do competitions among the wings of the building, the first floor versus second floor. And then this is also something the students can take home, tell their parents about it, and then get their parents excited. It's the district opens it up to anybody, to where it's a website that you can go to at any time, see the building, see how much energy is using, and just all the fun aspects about the building. Again, I will touch on that in just a second. And this is just a quick screenshot, from our SPHERE system that I'll show you a live demo. But it's interactive, as I mentioned. It's just another exciting way Did the students get excited? And then I'll show you some ways here in just a second of how the teachers can actually pull the data from this information into the classroom to use it as an instructional tool. So I wanted to give a quick live presentation of this curriculum integration or sphere system that I touched on. So this is kind of the homepage, the dashboard, and I'll keep it brief. I can give a complete hour presentation on this, and I'd be more than willing to if anybody's interested in the future. But this is what you can kind of see as the live demonstration portion of the energy use of the building. So I do want to tell you full disclosure, you'll see the building demand here, where on the previous slide actually had showing the KW. We actually have a meter issue right now that we're working on resolving. So the building demand shows 0 KW, obviously not the case. But what I want to focus on is, the way the teachers can use this, the way the students can use it, or even parents can use it to demonstrate how much energy is being used in the building. So this, you can graph, you can change the graphs, and you can show that, for example, at this date, it used that much electricity. Well, then the next day it dropped down to there. Well, why is that? Well, it went from a Friday when students were in school down to Saturday. You can change it to break down the energy of how much the kitchen used versus the lighting versus the mechanical systems, et cetera. You can see how much energy the solar panels are producing and how much energy the wind is producing. Then you can take that and actually put it into a pie chart and look at percentages of how much of the electricity is going to each system. And as we sat down with Craig and his team, the teachers were throwing out amazing ideas of ways that things that we could do to help them incorporate this. And one comment they had was, well, is there a way we can draw on this? We can annotate on this to really get the point across. So what we did is we actually added this little annotate button. So the teachers can come over here and they can talk to the students about, well, why was the energy this high on a Friday, but then why was it down here on a Saturday? And then once they have all this information, then they can also export this information as a PDF, as an Excel spreadsheet, whatever they need to do to actually bring this data into the classroom. Just makes a real powerful tool to help the teachers. And then another thing we incorporated into it is what we call the 360-degree tour. So we went through the facility during construction and also during designing, took these 360-degree views from throughout the school. So these are live views that you can pan around. If the students have VR goggles, they can put them on, they can look up, they can look down, they can do it with an iPad or just with a mouse. But you can basically walk through the entire school. Again, I won't take time to walk everywhere, but walk into a classroom, for example, to where the student could be sitting in this classroom, but could have VR goggles on and seeing all of this in virtual reality and pan around. And then throughout the facility, we hid these Easter eggs to where the students can click on them or look at them. And it pulls up little tidbits about the school, just again, things that teachers can bring into the classroom. So this just talks about the use of the sunshades on the outside of the building and why they're beneficial and what they do for the building. Gives teachers an opportunity to talk about sun angles and why there's glare in the building sometimes and why there's not. Another cool point that one of Craig's teachers brought up was, we had all these pictures from construction, but what can we do with them? Well, we decided to come up with this another Easter egg that we call Window to the Past. So what this does is it brings you standing in the same classroom you're in, but brings you back in time, or lets you look through the ceiling to where you can see what was going on during construction. You can see the HVAC system, the electricity, the fire sprinkler lines, all these things that can get the students excited and let them see what's kind of going on, above the ceiling. Another cool aspect one of the teachers brought in was, right here you have an electrician. It gets the gives the students excited about skilled trades, and then gives the teachers opportunities to teach them about, skilled trades that are out there, be it electrical contractors, mechanical contractors, whatever the case may be. And then it also gives them the opportunity to take them into spaces where the students typically wouldn't be allowed to go. So a mechanical room, for example. Yes, you could bring a student or two in here at a time, but this allows you to bring the students in virtually and see what is heating and cooling their building. So for example, you see this red line here, that is taking the geothermal loop in and out of the ground that we talked about earlier. And then there's these, again, Easter eggs kind of hidden throughout that the students can click on, and it just gives them a little bit of information, about the HVAC system and how it works. And then the last one, again, not to take too much time, I want to jump out to the eco garden, for example. It can take the students outside. They can see the windmill. They can see the solar panels. They can see the water system. And then again, the Easter eggs hidden throughout, talks about how the gravity gauge works. then click on the cistern and it talks about the rainwater harvesting that Craig touched on. We could tie in some hidden links even that would take them to the lunch menu, for example, or they could click on and see what kind of vegetables are being used from the eco garden. But anyway, you can just jump around, from room to room, from space to space, and these hidden Easter eggs are throughout. Again, all we want to do is just give the teachers a way to really incorporate this information into their classroom.
So as you've seen, and you've seen a lot of discussion about outdoor learning tools, building as a teaching tool, and interactive learning environments, we wanted to conclude our presentation today by actually talking about why did we think, and why did the school district think it was important for us to do this in this building? Why is active learning environment important? Why is outdoor learning environment? So this is just a summary of what we have seen and the research behind all of this. So Albert Einstein had mentioned, education is not the learning of facts, but teaching the mind to think. And passive learning is definitely more the former than the latter. And lots and lots of research studies have shown the benefits of active learning. And as you see in the demonstration by Zach, as we have talked about, Craig and I talked about different active learning ways, the eco garden, the sundial, the constant different kind of even the spaces that we have that actually help kids move from one location to the other, and different ways that we have incorporated active learning. The benefits of those include that it actually has greater comprehension and memory. The kids do show that they have greater comprehension and memory when they do active learning. Increased content knowledge, much improved critical thinking and problem solving abilities, positive attitudes, making sure that the kids actually have positive attitude towards learning, that itself is a big milestone. Increased enthusiasm, their confidence, the creative thinking, communication, and interpersonal skills are actually much, much more improved with active learning as well. And then moving on to outdoor learning, there are many benefits of outdoor learning that I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, but there is this very famous study that was done by Professor Poe at Illinois. And what she saw and what she tried to do was she had the same instruction, the same class taught inside or outside. And they saw what happened in the next class after this instruction period. And as you see on that slide, the kids were significantly more engaged in the class period after the outdoor learning period. And then the second was that the interruptions in the next learning period were half of the interruptions if the kids had had the same learning period indoors. So as an elementary school teacher, especially, the number of interruptions and the number of that can stop her from teaching what she wants to teach, having those halved is a really big deal. And again, the kids feel that they have much more autonomy during outdoor lessons. So that positive attitude that can be seen from active learning to outdoor learning. And we cannot emphasize enough how much that has helped us help the school districts, and knowing that they want to take their learning to outdoor and active, we as designers and as a team could make that happen in the school. So that's what we wanted to show from our presentation, and I hope we have delivered the benefits of this kind of learning. We will just open to questions. This is our contact information. Please feel free to let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.